Morning, today is January 13th, 2026, and currently we're with Shane in the IT department. So Shane, do you want to lead us off, please?
Sure. So it happened a little quicker than I expected, but last week on Thursday, I was contacted by the clerk and recorder and treasurer for Sanders County. And apparently she had heard about Civic. She was really interested, wanted me to have a meeting with her and show her what it was all about. So Friday, I met with her on a Teams meeting and showed her how it worked and everything. She was really interested in it. And I told her, I said, well, I haven't even talked to the commissioners yet about how they want to do this thing. So that's one reason why I wanted to meet today, was to talk about the software so that you guys understand what we have and what we can do with it, and then find out what you want to do as far as if we want to go that road and give it to other, or let other counties use it, charge them. I mean, that's an option. But first of all, I need to explain what the software is under the hood. So it's written in PHP because it's a web application. So that PHP code that I've written, if you're familiar with how other software, some other software is written in a compiled language like C or C++ or Rust or one of those like that, that gets compiled into an executable file. Well, if you give somebody that executable file, they don't have your source code. PHP is an interpreted language, so it doesn't get compiled. It sits in raw text on the server. The server reads it and does what it basically tells the server to do. So your source code is always, if you provide that program to somebody else, they have your source code. So there's some things you can do to protect that. And there's different ways of licensing it. Now, typically when you write software, to avoid reinventing the wheel, you pull in what's called libraries that somebody else has already written. Like they'll have a library that handles PDF files, or they'll have a library that handles email. And I use those two examples because those are two libraries that I'm pulling in from open source software. Those two libraries are licensed using the LGPL license. And I don't know if you've ever had any dealings with software licensing or not, but for open source, there's permissive licenses, and then there's more open licenses, and what they call copyleft. And what that means is, if let's use GPL, which is the basic one. If you use software that's licensed GPL, you can't use that in a program that you sell unless you release your source code, because that's what the GPL license says. This is free software, it's open source, and if you use this in your program, then you have to make your program open source too.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't still sell it, but the fact that it's open source
Means somebody can
means that somebody else can use it without having to pay you for it, because they have access to the source code. Then there's the LGPL, which is the one we're dealing with these two libraries. So that's called the lesser GPL. The way that one is written, you can use that in proprietary software, and you don't have to open source your software. So with a web application like what we have right now, I'm not using any GPL stuff. I'm only using those two that are LGPL, and then I'm using some other things that are just MIT licensed. They're basically use them how you want, doesn't matter. So we have the option, if we want to let other counties use it, we have the option, we can license it pretty much however we want. We could make it open source. There are some benefits to making it open source and putting the source code out there. If if it becomes a popular project and you have other programmers who are interested in it, they can jump on board and help you write improvements for it. And then they provide those to you and you check them for mistakes or whatever, and then you add that to your program, and now you have a better program because somebody helped you. But there's also the other side to that. It's not required that somebody pay you to use it. The other way that we could do it is offer it as what they call software as a service. So then we put it on a server and we basically sell subscription to it. We rent it to them, like you were talking about the other day. So then, let's say this other county wants to use it. We would have to put it on a server, set up a configuration for them so that they could log into it, use it, and then pay you for it. So those are kind of our
Would the
options.
server be here or would it be there?
It
Because it's a local.
it can't be on their site. It would have to be either here or in the cloud, and then we would manage it. Because if you're not opening your source, you don't want it on site there, because then they would have access to it and they would
Right.
be able.
How much work is that for you?
Well, that's
In a
the
whole
other
nother
thing.
Position?
That's a whole nother position. Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking. I mean, somebody has to run it if we're doing.
Especially if
something
it's
like
gonna
that.
be more than one county. I mean, I don't know how, this may be the only county that ever contacts us and wants it.
I'm gonna
or-
say that's not gonna be the case.
Or
but
you may get inundated with requests. And in that case, it's gonna be a job to maintain that, and for all of those, because each county would have to have their own virtual machine, basically their own virtual server. And so you're paying for space out there in the cloud, or a whole server here
whole
if you wanted to go that way. You're going to be purchasing certificates, and that's an annual cost of, right now they're about $120 somewhere in there per year for a certificate. So there's some cost involved if we want to go that route. As far as the part that I've written, the part that you guys paid me to write, I started with, I think, 2 or 3 classes that I've used in other projects. And I use those as a basis to start building on. Everything after that belongs to the county. These are really kind of, if we just use them internally, it doesn't matter what we license them for. I mean, because we're just using them. But if we want to go the route of letting somebody else use it, then we have to figure out what license we want to attach to it. So, you guys got any opinions or thoughts on that, or?
what? So just thinking off the top of my head, because I don't know. That's why I'm asking this. What happens if, in the example of and I don't know how we would do this, or if we had to license it, if we did this, but say we own the program and we give it to Sanders County and say, we're gonna let you try this. If after 6 months you want it, we're gonna have to do something, but, and do that with everybody, because somebody, and I'll use Black Mountain as an example. Somebody's gonna want this. And then we just sell it to some other company and we get to use it for free, even though they're charging everybody else in perpetuity. If that makes any sense. I'm just asking because I don't know how it works.
Well, so basically what you're saying is we're just gonna use the honor system and let them say they're not gonna take it. And
Right, and that's, so if they have the source code,
my only concern
they
with
can
that,
steal the program.
yeah, and
Basically.
my only concern with that is they don't have on-site IT staff, so they use DIS for their
Oh.
IT. So now you're talking about a managed service provider. If they got access to it and there's no license on it, then that means
Bootleg.
Yeah,
they're just gonna copy it, make their, makes
Microsoft's gonna
their
own
own
it by the time we're
changes.
done.
The big advantage to the license that we're talking about, the GPL, the AGPL, is that they can use it. But if they make any changes to it to make it better, they have to provide those to us. They have to give them back they have to give back to the community. That's what open source is all about. Is if you improve the program, you give your improvements back to the community and you let everybody have that improvement that you made.
And we could still rent it to them. And then if they do that, we basically still own it. Now we own the improvements too, but it's still open source.
Yeah, at that point, you don't really, it belongs to everybody. It's like you don't have any control over what happens to it from that point on. I mean, you can still make changes to it and you can still use it forever. It's not going to cost you anything to use it. And any changes you make to it, you put those back and everybody has those
And everybody
changes.
has them.
Yeah.
So is somewhat of kind of the bottom line issue here, whether the county wants to look at this as some sort of for lack of a better word, an asset.
Or a
That-
revenue
or
source.
source of
or
revenue.
a revenue source, and then down the road, if, like your example, Craig, Microsoft or somebody wants to come in, Black Mountain, or wants to come in and buy it from us, is that where we want to be? And I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it would be cool to have it so people could subscribe to it. If we have it locally, they can subscribe to it. The only problem I see with that is all the stuff that you're doing for our county right now to get this zoned in, you're gonna have to do with every county. I don't know how much time you're spending on this, but I'm sure it's pretty.
Well, I don't think the bugs will have to be, because we're
Right,
supposed to be
yeah, we'll have
fixing
the
those,
bugs
but I
fixed.
think the training and stuff is gonna.
The training.
Yeah.
There's
and issues
training.
that come up.
There's training, there's support, and then there's customizations. For example, when I talked to her on Friday, they don't use orgs at all in their accounting. Well, the way the software is written right now, the org determines who signs it.
Right.
Okay.
So that means there's going to have to be some modifications to it to fit the way they want to use it. Or we could say, well, this is the way it's written. You'll have to plug in some orgs if you want
If you wanna use it.
if you want to use it.
Yeah.
So as far as how much time I've spent on it, I think I started in July is when I started on it. And probably average 8 hours a week I've been able to devote to it. Now, there's been some weeks that's more, especially the last few weeks, I've really pounded on it to work out the bugs and
You
stuff.
spent 8 hours on the phone with me.
You didn't wanna be-
But yeah, I mean, if we decide to go that route, I think we would have to hire some help.
And that's what I'm seeing if we did that. And it's,
And
the
then
reason I ask those questions is because it happened with the law enforcement program. And this program, Lewis and Clark County did the same thing with a whole nother program. But they started the same way. They basically, somebody wrote a song about it. They built this thing in their garage. They started selling it. We were I think we were the second or third ones to use it. It wasn't called Central Square at that point.
Mhm.
And before we were done with our stuff, I mean, we had it hooked up and then Central Square bought it and lots of things changed because it was a big company that bought it.
Well, once you get an infusion of cash and programmers, you know, I
And
mean,
it was huge. And then they started selling it piecemeal or renting it, so to speak.
a la carte stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have that, but this is what it's gonna cost you upfront and then a yearly cost on top of it. So I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
All I have is questions.
Well, and the thing that has to be considered also with bringing somebody else on board is, you know, when is the cash equalization point?
Right.
Yeah, how many other counties
How many
have to
counties
use it
would
to
it make it
cost
viable? Yeah.
effective for us?
Yeah.
In my mind, I guess from what I've heard, I feel like we need to license it to protect it
Okay.
somehow. And I honestly, if we just keep it here and don't let anybody use it, it's protected, correct?
Right.
Unless somebody builds the exact same program. But they know it's out there, somebody could probably do it, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of
To
people
where
that
if
could
it's
do it.
licensed, I don't think they would be able to a certain extent. But then you're talking the difference between Ford and Dodge and Chevy, maybe.
Well, so if we license it, somebody else could still write their own. And it's not like we're copywriting the idea by licensing it.
Okay.
When we license this code, we're licensing this exact code. And if I believe the way the courts, and I don't know, he may know, but the way the courts go is if you change less than 20% of it, it's still the same beast, still the same thing. And you can't use it without honoring the license. But if you change more than 20% of it, then it's no longer the same software.
Well, I will profess that I know absolutely about trademark, patent, and copyright law, and then when it comes to licensing for intellectual property, I don't have a clue.
Okay.
Cause that's the thing is, with everything I've ever used, you almost have to, if you buy their program, you have to buy a license to use it.
Mhm.
And say if this program was out there and we bought it, everybody who used it would have to be licensed. They would have to have a license normally
Yeah.
to use whatever they're using. I mean, it's just like a Microsoft license. I think we didn't pay one today, but we paid one a while ago, where we're basically paying a fee to use something.
Mhm. And that's the way software has gone recently. Used to, you'd buy a program, you can install it on your computer and use it for as long as that computer was alive. That's not that way anymore. Now, almost everybody has gone to the subscription model.
Which brings me to another question of when we bought the program from the very first guy, and this is where I get back to Sanders County using it, we got a screaming deal on it because basically we were a test subject. And when it moved, so we got it cheaper than what we normally would have paid for it. But once the bigger company took over and the improvements they made, that's where we started paying extra over and above.
Mhm.
Because if you wanted the whole program today from Central Square, just to use that as an example, you would spend a lot of money on it. We didn't spend near that.
Right.
So that's something you can give us an idea on, like, if you decide to put it into a local circuit and Sanders wants to use it, whatever deal that they can access that. And then charge them for your time as getting them set up and all that, you know, what we pay you plus whatever you think is fair for you to support them. just use them as a guinea pig, like Craig said, that we could have 2 or 3 counties. If this thing explodes, then we'd have to step back and say, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
We're gonna have to hire somebody else, or I think if it's just one county right now, if you can go through the steps and figure out how to make this thing work before we hire somebody
right,
and
right.
just see how that works,
Mhm.
and then we can maybe get a plan of action after that happens. If Sanders loves it and it just starts going crazy, then we'd have to figure out what we're gonna do with it. I think a software company would probably wanna buy it.
And there's nothing that says later on, as long as we've still got it closed source, later on, we could change our mind and say, okay, we're gonna license it differently now.
It could, to start with, could we do that with somebody to manage it? Say we get 2 or 3 counties and contract with somebody to manage it rather than try to do it in-house and spend some money on salaries and insurance and benefits and everything else up front.
Yeah,
And then have it, then 3 years from now, we still only have 3 counties using it.
right, yeah, no,
But then if you contract it out, is it still ours, or can that, because of the stuff you're talking about, can that contractor just
Well-
pick it up and say, hey, I'm gonna,
not unless
I'm
he's
gonna run with
dishonest. Because typically when you hire a contractor, they sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so as long as they've signed that, they're not allowed legally to take
do
that
that.
outside the building, basically.
is that like a viable option, Steve? Something,
Well, the question would be, could you find the direct answer to your question is yes. If you can find somebody, and I'm sure Shane knows better than me, but, the question is how hard would it be to train them up so that, because there's gonna be your time, and because if you hire a IT person to come in on a contract basis and say, here, I want you to go teach people how to use this.
Right.
They gotta be coached up.
Right.
I guess
first.
I'm not talking so much about the training aspect of it. I'm talking about, although that's part of it that I didn't think of. But the maintenance of it, the things like that.
So, if we're maintaining the one we're using here, then anything we do to that one, we should be able to just do to the other one without even thinking about it. Right now, like, let's say I've got some bug fixes sitting there on my computer ready to push up to the server. So if I push those up to the server we're using and everything still works and it does what we want it, then pushing them to the next server and the next one and the next one could be all automated. So as far as maintenance,
At what point do you think it gets
Unmanageable.
overwhelming or unmanageable? Is it 3 counties? Is it 10 counties? Is it? Cause I think this is a huge opportunity for you, and for you might be sitting in your living room just running this thing and retired.
Collecting royalties.
I hope that doesn't happen, but.
well, it's hard to say as far as when it would become unmanageable for me. A lot would depend on how much customization had to be made for those counties.
Cause
And
if we had
how
somebody who
much-
wanted it that was exactly like us and did everything like us, it would be simple.
well, and it was my understanding in talking to Ginger when I was designing it, was there's a standards out there as far as the way the accounting is supposed to work for counties in Montana.
I would imagine.
There's a document that has all of the orgs and all of the account numbers and all of that in it. And so I would imagine that most counties are going by that document. But in the case of like Sanders, for example, they just leave out that one part about the orgs. They use all the other stuff, but they just don't use the orgs part. So I don't know how much variance there's gonna be, because I'm really unfamiliar with how the other counties operate. I mean,
I'm not either.
it's like Corey said, maybe we just experiment with Sanders and say,
And that's
okay,
kinda what I was thinking.
we'll throw it on a server and we'll set it up for you, and we'll see how long it takes to set it up, and we'll track our time and our money and then we'll have a better idea of what it's going to cost us to provide it for another county.
And how much time it takes to set it up. I'm sure it would be a little different, but at least you'd have an idea,
Yeah,
you know, how much time it took you to go from what you've got now to get it working for a different county.
Yeah, because us and Sanders is not quite apples to apples, but
Right.
it's close, but you get to us in Yellowstone.
Right,
That's a whole different ballgame.
yeah.
But that's where the other companies are going, well, you're getting it for this amount, but then after that, your licenses are only costing you this much a month because you're only licensing 10 people. Yellowstone County, the price goes way up because of that, because they're licensing 75 people.
well, another thing you have to take into account, and we don't want to forget about, is storage space.
Right.
And I don't know if you
Which is
guys
expensive.
have been keyed in on the news lately about the cost of storage with all of this AI garbage that's been going on. Storage costs have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Just in the last 6 months, they've more than doubled.
Wow.
So buying an SSD drive that used to cost you $120 is now $280.
Hmm.
And you can't buy the rules, you can't not store it. There's rules by
Well,
how
right.
long Ginger
Yeah.
has to keep all of this stuff.
Right,
Well, and right now, the source of truth for all of our stuff is really in Black Mountain, because Ginger and Stephanie are putting everything that we run through this program into Black Mountain. So technically, after a year, we could clean up our database here in Civic, as long as it's still in Black
Still in
Mountain.
Black Mountain, and we're paying for that storage.
Yes. So that's something that we haven't even talked about yet, as far as, because we've got plenty of storage right now on the server that we're running it on. I've been keeping a close eye on it because I was really curious how quickly it's going to start piling up when people are putting their invoices in there. And you know, a lot of the things that are generated, like when someone clicks a PDF, that's a temporary file that gets created in a cache folder, and that cache gets deleted after a certain amount of time. And so those files are kind of transient, but the invoices are not. Those are stuck in there and attached to the claim for as long as we decide that they need to be in there. But like I said, as long as they're in Black Mountain, you know, we have a little leeway on what we can do as far as storage space. But when you're talking about a county like Yellowstone, they might be using a ton of space in a 6-month period. And so that's an expense that we have to think about too. But like you said, if we're licensing it by the number of people that are using it instead of just a flat fee for a county, then that might help with offsetting those costs.
yeah, I would just experiment on Sanders, whatever you think you need to do and see how it goes. That's a good first step in my mind.
Yeah, cause I think you have to have that starting point, and you always get a better deal on what I would think of as a beta version of something.
Right. Yep.
And Sanders County wants to step up to the plate. I think they get the deal, and eventually the beta version goes away.
Yeah.
And Shane, if you do
Which
this,
is pretty typical.
if you do this experiment with Sanders County, is there a way you can keep it protected? I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Preserve your licensing.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's all through.
Because
here.
they'll be accessing it over the network to a server here.
And
And
do we have to license it to do that under one of the options you gave?
no, it's still proprietary right now.
And we can let them do that without,
And we're not violating any of the licenses for the libraries that we're using.
So they can't go in and change anything, right? Based
They
on-
wouldn't have access to
Yeah,
the source
exactly,
code,
okay.
no.
I just wanted to double check.
They will be like, when you guys log into it at your computer, that's what they're gonna see. And you guys wouldn't have any access to the source code from that interface, so.
and Shane would have, I seen some of it, and Shane would have to be cloned for somebody to understand what the heck it said.
Yeah, that's true.
What you're saying is I'm bad at documenting my code, huh?
Nope, just saying I don't understand it.
Code is a foreign language, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, the entire project, if you count those libraries that I'm pulling in, is close to 1 million lines of code. The part that I wrote for the county is only around 5,000 lines of code. So,
Which is pretty typical.
Yeah.
For somebody doing that, something like that, though.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good, Shane.
okay,
Say.
well, I think we have a plan going forward and
We'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Go experiment.
If it explodes, I think we should be talking to Black Mountain and saying, we don't want this.
Why don't
You need to have this.
Purchase this.
That's
Or-
what I say, but
Or we can just replace Black Mountain and take them out of the picture and have our own.
there you go.
That's true.
You're gonna need about
True.
40 more staff, but if you're gonna take
Not if
over
it's
Black
for
Mountain.
us, but if it did turn into that, we'd have to put a new building up somewhere.
Yeah, we have to put one of those data centers in too and
Yeah.
draw a lot of juice.
Well, at that point, you would probably be using Cloudflare. You would just put it out in the cloud and
Let them deal with
let
it.
them deal with all the security hassles and you just work on the software.
Yeah.
And I think you really need to keep track of what this thing with Sanders County, what kind of time you're spending, what it's costing you and what it's costing us,
Mhm.
just so we have that general idea and maybe just say, like Corey said, let them use it and see what they think. And after 6 months, we'll revisit it or whatever time frame. I don't even know what that would be.
I think 6 months would give us a good idea of, storage space and support issues. I think those are the two things that are kind of hard to predict.
Cause I don't know how these two guys feel, but this has made a world of difference for the amount of time and ink and paper that I've spent on claims. And it's made me pay, I think I paid better attention to them. Because you're not just looking at a piece of paper and flipping it over and seeing you actually have to click on it and look at that invoice. And I think it's made me more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, definitely a benefit.
Yep, I agree.
Okay,
Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, sir.
You keep us in touch. You ready to shut
Yes,
this off?
go, yeah, please.